Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Keeping It Real podcast. I'm your host, Kaylea Lonaville, and today I have a special guest with me. This is her first time on the podcast. Please, everyone, welcome, round of applause, Kaylea Liggett. Hey, girl, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. I'm so happy to have you on the podcast.
I'm happy to be here.
And we also got a special guest today, too. We got Kaylea. Kaylea, can you say something? Here. It's always the best. You could hear her little snorts. But yeah, so this is Kaylee's first time on the podcast. I'm so excited to have her here. We have just some special topics to talk about today, and we're excited to dive in. We're going to just be speaking through the Lord, and we're going to let him in and just talk through him and let him talk whatever he wants out of us. So, Kaylea, can you tell us a little bit about you? Where are you from? Are you from here?
I was born in Wyoming, and then I moved kind of a lot as a kid, and I moved to Texas for a majority of elementary school, and then for middle school moved back to Wyoming, and I ended up in Florida for high school, and I'm still here, and I'm continuing through college here as well.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
And how old are you again?
I'm 21.
Okay, so Kaylea is 21. You guys, 21 was my best years. So
it's been a great one.
Yeah, honestly, 21's so much fun. So that's so fun. And so you've been in Florida for what,
7-ish years? Yeah.
And do you like it?
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
It's my favorite place out of the three of them. So
that's so awesome. And you also are going to school to be a teacher, right?
Yes, elementary ed.
So fun. That's so fun. So I have another question for you. So how long have you been in your faith? Have you always been a Christian? Have you tell me a little bit about your faith journey?
So I grew up Christian, going to church on Sundays. Nothing crazy. I mean, my mom's always taught me about Jesus and faith and all of that, but I think freshman year of high school, maybe going into sophomore year, was when I really found my foundation with the Lord on my own.
Okay.
In my own way.
Love that.
And that was really awesome.
That's
to
awesome.
Experience is your first time speaking to the Lord in your own way.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times I would rely on my mom. I think even as an adult, I was relying on my mom's faith a lot. And just kind of
that's so true.
Piggybacking off of what her faith was.
Yeah.
And not that that's a bad thing. Your parents are your foundation.
Yeah.
Your upbringing as you're going through your faith. But I think for me, finding that with Christ was amazing. And then as an adult, actually the first time I moved out, I was having kind of some spiritual warfare going on. And
so real.
The Lord just kind of came to me and was like, use the authority that I gave you and break these things off of your life. And I was like, wow, Lord, okay.
Yeah.
So I think I would say once I hit about 18 was when I really realized the impact of having your own relationship with God has on your life.
So true. It really does. And building that intimacy with him is something that's just so important, because you really get to hear what his calling is for you, hear what he wants you to do, or all those things. So that's really cool and very true. And I think could be really encouraging for anyone listening to that, building that relationship and not relying on your parents or on your pastor or anyone, but really building it yourself. I think that's so good. I love that.
Now, not to say that the people around you and their faith is also important in your life.
Absolutely.
So important. But, of course, number one priority is your relationship with God.
Yeah.
Personally.
Absolutely. Because that's where all of your strength and all of your foundation comes from, is your relationship with him personally.
For sure.
So that's so awesome. I love that. Well, okay, so me and Kaylea, so it's actually kind of funny, story how we met. So Kaylea, we've been following each other on Instagram for a couple months now.
Yeah.
And she's been asking about sourdough, and I was like, yeah, come get started whenever. But life happens, and it's 3 months now, and I still haven't gotten started.
It's okay.
We'll get there. I promise. I was at church with Callie, which y'all know Callie. She's been on the podcast twice now. I was at church with Callie, and Kaylee goes to the church that Callie goes to. And after church, Kaylee came up to me and was like, "Hey, I'm Kaylee," and she's like, "I think I know you." And I was like, "Oh, okay. Like, how do you know me?" And I was like, she's like, "Instagram," and I was like, "Oh my gosh, you're Kaylee." So that's kind of how we met, and then we started doing Pilates and praise together. And for those of you who don't know, I am now a Pilates instructor for Callie's Pilates studio, and she hosts Pilates and praise that I now teach until she pops out her baby, and then she'll be back.
And she's amazing at it as well.
Oh, me or Callie? Well, Callie's amazing.
Well, yes, of course. She's amazing as well, but I'm saying you are amazing.
Thank you. And it's very new. This is going to be my 4th class this week, but it's been so much fun. And then you came to Bible study last week, and that's where I was just like, I need to have her on my podcast. Like, I just feel like what we talked about also, like, that's what we're going to be kind of talking about today. We're going to be in Matthew 7, and it was just like, I don't know, I feel like we like really connected with it, both of us. Like, me and Kaylee were like the only ones talking the whole time.
I feel so bad. I was like, am I being too much right now?
No, I love it because it helps people so much. So I just want to read where we are going to be in Matthew 7, and then we will go off of that. So I'm going to be reading from Matthew chapter 7, verse 13 to 14. So it says, "You can enter God's kingdom only through the narrow gate. The highway to hell is broad, and its gate is wide for the many who choose that way. But the gateway to life is very narrow, and the road is difficult, and only a few ever find it." So I feel like that was just like a really cool part in our Bible study last week, because I feel like it just really talked about like how there's just like such a narrow road to following the Lord, and how when you go on that narrow road, it's not easy, but it's so worth it.
Yes.
So I don't know. I feel like piggybacking off of that, you had just some great things to say about it. So I'd love for you to like share about that.
I think it's important to realize as Christians, especially when you're walking hand in hand with the Lord and when you're really a Christian, because, there's a lot of Christians out there. But when you're truly, like, committing your life to Christ, He never promises that it's going to be easy. In fact, He quite literally talks about how it's going to be hard.
Yeah.
And so I think that sometimes people can just assume that, because you're a Christian, your life is so easy, when the reality is you're actually battling the temptation that the world is inviting in. So true. And so that battle is what becomes part of your walk with Christ. Yeah. And I think, I just think it's so amazing how even in the hardship, the Lord is so faithful to His word.
Okay, we just had to pause for a second because we had a little bit of a lighting malfunction, but we're back. So, Kaylee, as you were saying, like, at the end of the narrow road, like, there is, what is there?
There's just faithful promises, the promised land that the Lord talks about, and just His fruitfulness from that narrow walk.
That's so good. And it's like, the part of it is it's like what you said, it's not the easiest thing to do, but when you choose to do it, there's so much light that's gonna be shown through it. And I mean, even when I started my walk with the Lord, it definitely was not easy, but it's grown to something so beautiful and so much more than I could have ever imagined it to be.
Yeah, that's so. I feel like that's with everyone in their walk with Christ, because I think that as you walk, yes, it's hard, but it's also so fulfilling and so beautiful that it just outweighs the toughness of it. Yeah.
And also the hardness of it is that you're kind of letting go the old things of your life. You're letting go of friendships, you're letting go of relationships, you're letting go of things that used to be fun for you, drinking, partying. If you're doing drugs, like things like that, if you're having sex, you're letting go of all those things. And you're deciding to walk in a newness of life that is completely foreign and completely different to you, but it's so beautiful in the end. So I think like that narrow path, like what they talk about in Matthew 7, Matthew chapter 7, verse 13 through 14, like that is just, there's so much that can be brought out of just that that little section right there.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that that's just something so beautiful. So yeah, anything else that you'd like to say about that?
Well, I also think that Matthew chapter 7, it just goes on to, the little subtitles, judging others, the golden rule, ask and it will be given, a tree and its fruit, build your house on rock. This is Matthew chapter 7 is the foundation of what Christ talks about and how important it is to walk with him.
Yeah. That's so true. I feel like Matthew chapter 7 is like the foundation of like basically kind of starting with the Lord, or even like starting your walk with the Lord. Like, do not judge others. Matthew chapter 7 verse 1. Do not judge others and you will not be judged. Basically, like, if you think about it, if you're walking around judging, if you're walking around with this like feeling on your chest or feeling on your heart, then that's all ultimately what people are going to view you as or view from you, because that's what you're portraying and that's how you're acting. When you act a certain way, that's what people will see you as.
Right.
So I think that that's like a great thing. The standard you use in judging is a standard by which you will be judged. So how are you judging people? They're going to judge you that exact way. This part, I think we should talk about verse 3. And why worry about a speck in your friend's eye when you have a log in your own? How can you think of saying to your friend, let me help you get rid of that speck in your eye when you can't see past the log in your own eye? Hypocrite. First, get rid of the log in your own eye, then you will see well enough to deal with the speck in your friend's eye. I love that.
That's so funny. I just highlighted that like before I came in here. So the Lord is definitely wanting us to speak on that.
Yeah.
I think it's important to note that everyone is going to have flaws. There's no perfect human being. The only perfect human being was Jesus Christ himself.
Absolutely.
No one is going to attain the same level, which is hence the grace that the Lord gave us.
Yeah.
Because we can't be perfect. And so I think that by saying this, by the Lord speaking this and saying, do not try to take the log out of your brother's eye when you yourself have a speck in your own. Yeah. He's reiterating the fact that you have to be right with the Lord before you can go to your brother or your sister and kind of point out their flaws as well.
Absolutely. And I feel like you should only be pointing out someone's, like, not only, because I feel like that's like kind of the bad way to say it, but like what I think we were talking about, like having a mirror, like looking at yourself before you're looking at anyone else. Like, how are you showing up? How are you being? And or if you're seeing someone, want to know what like I think is so cool, like I feel like when you see someone like how they're acting and you don't like it, it's because that's how you act.
Oh, yes.
Like, I feel like if someone's doing something that I don't like ultimately I feel like it's because that's something that I don't like about myself.
Oh, yeah.
So I feel like that's like a huge thing in this too. Like, don't judge others before you're judging yourself. Look at yourself. How are you showing up? All that. So I think that's like a great verse. I totally forgot about that verse actually until we just read that.
Again, I think Matthew 7 is just this big takeaway of how to walk with the Lord. Yeah. Because it even talks about ask and it will be given. Matthew 7 verse 7 says, ask and it will be given to you, seek and you will find, knock and it will be open to you. The section goes on to talk about how if a worldly man can gift his worldly children good gifts, what more can the Father do for his children? Wow. And I think it's so cool to look at it in that perspective, because the Lord wants to give us the desires of our hearts. He wants us to walk with him. I think it's also important to realize that when you're walking with Christ, the desires of your heart come from Christ. It's not to say like, oh, Lord, can you, like, the desire of my heart is to have a Lamborghini in the driveway in the morning. That's not a realistic desire from the Lord, because riches will fade. Yes. Right? And so I think that it's important to also realize that walk with Christ is what brings those desires. And so
Yeah.
what he's saying is, when you're walking with me, ask for what I'm already telling you need, and I
Yeah.
will give it to you.
That's so good. And like your heart posture too. Like where is your
Yes.
heart posture when you're asking for these things?
Oh,
Is
yeah.
it to be showy because you want a Lamborghini and you want to show it off? Or is it because like you're actually genuinely working hard to want that?
Right.
Because I don't think it's wrong to like want those things. Like
Of
I'm
course.
not really like that. I could care less about
Right.
those things.
And
But
not to say that yeah, exactly.
yeah, not to say that it's like wrong to want those things, but what's your heart posture on it? You know,
Right.
like, are you trying to show off? Are you trying to be like, oh, I have this, oh, I have that? But when you have the desires of the Lord in your heart, those things don't even matter anymore.
Right.
They really don't.
And I think that's the whole point of the Lord saying that in that verse is like, the things of the world don't matter. So when you're following Him, when you're following me, then those desires will come from me.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so true. And like watch how much like your perspective on life shifts too when you do that.
Oh, yeah.
Like the perspective of life when like the desires of your heart like come from him. I don't know. I just feel like my perspective of life is completely different even. Like I don't know, when I look at people who are following the Lord, they don't have those. I mean, there's some people that have like the really nice things, but you would never know it, you know, and you would never like expect it from them because their heart is so strong in God and not strong in like what they have or the things that they have. And some people's there are, and some Christians there are, I'm sure, but I don't know.
As with anyone.
It's with anyone. Yeah, exactly. But I think that that's such like an important thing is to not desire the things of the world, but desire the things of the Lord and watch what'll fall into place when you do that.
In my own personal life, I've kind of experienced that as well of just this striving to have the next best thing, right? Just constantly wanting, you know, a massive friend group or needing to be the popular person or, you know, the things that are so hard to attain.
That's
the
so
things
true.
that are so worldly that you just it doesn't come naturally.
Yeah.
And so when I kind of surrendered all of that to the Lord, and I was like, you know what, Lord, you know the friends that I need. You know the desires of my heart. You know what my heart needs, basically.
Yeah.
And now the fruit of just that one prayer is so ridiculous and so amazing in my life.
Isn't it?
And just I think the friend situation was a big thing for me.
Oh, me too.
Because I was struggling so hard, and I would have a friend group, and then I would fall out of that friend group, and I'm like, what is wrong with me?
Yeah.
But the reality is I was just seeking friendships in the wrong areas of life.
So true.
And I think now seeing my godly friendships and the way that they help me pursue the Lord and the way that they push me closer to the Lord, it's just so fruitful and so beautiful.
Yeah, that's so true. I can agree in that so much. I feel like I talked about like friendship so much on the podcast because it's been such a big part of my life.
Yeah.
Like friendship has been such like a heavy thing, honestly. Like friendships were so heavy in my life because I never felt like I truly like fit in with a friendship. You know what I mean? I always felt like I had to like prove myself and to be someone that I wasn't to like be a part of this friendship. And it's like, no, that's not it. And like when I found these friends that like I have now in the group that we have now, it's like there's no proving.
No,
it's just being
so
who you
natural.
are. It's so natural. And like everyone is just so loving and caring. And if you ask anyone for anything in our friend group that we have, they're there in a second.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
And it's no like second guessing. It's no like feeling like you're even a burden for asking that. And that's just like what I hope and pray for like anyone listening, that you can find that, but you have to seek it in the right places.
Yes,
and you can't seek it in the people that are going towards the worldly things, but the people that are going towards Jesus, because at the end of the day, those are the people that are going to be the best in your life, even relationship wise, like dating wise.
Oh, 100%.
Don't go towards the worldly things or the people that are filled with lust, because guess what, you're just going to get hurt in the end.
Oh yeah.
And that's like the hardest part for me too. I mean, I went through some hard relationships, really, really hard relationships, and not a single one of them were Christ-centered. And that's why they were so hard. So it's so true. And just find people and find your circle that like are really pursuing the Lord, and watch like the fruit that comes out of that. And don't also pretend to be someone that you're not.
No.
But
bad idea.
Bad idea. And don't be scared. This is something I talk about too, because like one of my biggest parts of my testimony was that I was so scared of being friends with Christian people because of like what I was doing, like living with the boy, not married yet, like doing all these wrong things that like, you know, is not typically Christian, and getting judged by it. But I've never had so much support from my relationship. I've never had so much godly advice from my relationship. I've never had so much prayer. And this whole time here I am just thinking that people are going to judge me, but they really just love me so much, you know? So not being afraid of finding those Christian people, and being in your sinful nature is okay, and still finding Christian people, because guess what? They're going to help you get out of it.
Exactly. That's kind of what I was saying, was just they bring you out of that, and they push you towards the right things and towards Christ. So I think that's so awesome.
Yeah, no, it's so true. And I don't know, I just hope and pray, like, you know, when you like do something like so cool, or like you feel so good, and you just want like everyone to feel that.
Everyone to feel it, yes.
But the great part about the Lord is that we all can.
We all can. Every last one of us.
Yeah, it's just a choice to decide to follow him and decide to want to go all in with him, and you get to feel all these fruits. And again, that narrow path, it's not going to be easy, but don't fall into the wide path that everyone else is going on. The wide path being the worldly things, the lustful thoughts, the rich things, or the nicest clothes. That's the wide path. But follow the narrow path of what the Lord's asking of you to do. Stop having sex before marriage. Stop drinking. Stop doing drugs. Stop gossiping. Stop sinning. Stop doing the things that you know that are wrong, and follow that path and watch the fruits. Again, it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be the most fun in the beginning, but the fruit that comes out of it in a couple months, a year down the road is so much better.
It's kind of like the analogy I gave at the Bible study of like...
I don't remember.
The big cattle gate.
Oh, yes. Wait, this is so good.
It's like all the cattle are being herded through this massive gate, and one cattle goes off, and they're like walking in the dark alone, and they feel alone and scared, and they're terrified. They're like, oh no, the wolves are coming, you know? But then at the very end of that path, there's this massive barn that's warm, and there's hay to lay on, and there's food to eat, and they're constantly fed, and they're constantly taken care of. There's no darkness, you know, everything is lit up, and I think that that's almost kind of how we are.
Yeah.
Is like, yes, that path might be scary at first, and it might be terrifying, but the second that you fully submit, you're in it for the long haul, and the Lord is literally feeding you. As long as you're reading this right here.
Yeah, the Bible.
Lord is spoon-feeding you, and He's taking care of you. And I'm not entirely sure where in the Bible it is, but the Lord literally talks about why be anxious when like tomorrow can be anxious for itself.
Luke, I think, chapter 12, verse 23 to 24. I literally, maybe if this is the one that you're talking about, but that is literally... Look at me! I've never said that!
That's awesome.
Oh, Kai is upset.
Did we scare you?
Kai, come back. Okay, wait. I'm going to show you. Okay. Is this it? Wait. 22. Oh.
Look
Jesus said, I've literally never done this before in my life, but I don't even know if this is right.
So bad. It's okay. You just read and I'll let you know.
That is why I tell you to not worry about everyday life, whether you have enough food to eat or enough clothes to wear, for life is more than food and your body more than clothing. Look at the ravens. They don't plant or harvest or store food in barns, for God feeds them, and you are far more valuable to Him than any birds. Can all your worries add a single moment to your life? And if worry can't accomplish a little thing like that, what's the use of worrying over bigger things?
Yeah, I think that's so important to just recognize, because the Lord literally says, submit to me and you don't have to worry.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, of course it's human nature. We're going to worry. We're going to freak out. We're going to have anxiety, you know.
Yeah.
But I think it's just important to go back to the foundation of who Christ says He is. And He's never going to change. His character doesn't change. His character stays the same. And so if He says you do not have to worry, then you do not have to worry.
Yeah.
And it's okay if you do.
Yeah.
But you just reel back and you realize, okay, why am I feeling these things?
Yeah.
It's like what one of the girls at the Bible study was saying. How she was saying, you know, if you're wearing a shirt and you are talking down on yourself and you're saying, oh, I hate this shirt, I look so ugly in it.
Yeah.
And it's like she was saying to picture Jesus standing in front of her saying that to her. And she's like,
so good.
He would never say something like that to me.
Never.
And I think that that's how you can almost differentiate the lies of the enemy and God's word over your life, because it's so true. Like, would Jesus say that to me in that moment?
Yeah.
Like, you need to be worrying about this thing. He's like, no, I've got you. Hand it to me, and you don't have to worry about anything.
And, like, actually handing it to him.
Yes, not just saying. It's like the faith of a mustard seed, right? It's like the Lord asks very specifically for our faith.
Yeah.
If there's one thing he asks, it's surrendering and being faithful to the Lord. And it's so important to recognize that aspect of it.
Yeah.
I always say it's so important too.
Yeah, I know, so do I.
But being able to recognize that aspect of it and just realizing that he's for you, not against you, that no weapon formed against you shall prosper.
Shall prosper, yeah.
It's so cool just to know that the Lord's always got your back.
Yeah,
and you don't have to worry about it.
Absolutely. And I think, like, that's, like, something I'm really working on right now and, like, really trying to figure out, just as, like, being not new in my faith, because, again, I've always been a Christian, but new in, like, a relationship with him. Like, having that faith is, like, something that I'm really, really working on, or really trying to, like, actually understand and how to do. And just in this season of my life recently, like, my job was really slow, and I'm headed to Italy in a couple weeks, and I, like, wasn't, I know, I'm so excited, and I wasn't getting an income that I needed. And I literally, this is wild, I haven't shared this yet. I, like, prayed to the Lord, and I was, like, really having anxious thoughts about this trip, like, thoughts that I wouldn't have. I love to travel, like, traveling's, like, my favorite thing in the world to do. And I was having these anxious thoughts of, like, something's gonna happen, like, blah, blah, just all these crazy thoughts of, like, the lies of the enemy. And I literally was like, Lord, if you are going to, if this trip is meant to happen, like, if I'm supposed to go, I know I'm supposed to have faith in you right now about, like, finances. I'm really struggling right now. I really don't know how I'm going to go on this trip. But I know that right before I go on the trip, you're going to provide, and you're going to bring in all these jobs for me, and it's just going to keep coming and coming and coming. I literally, these last 2 weeks, have not stopped with work.
That's awesome.
And I'm about to leave in a week and a half.
Yeah.
And it's literally my answered prayer that the Lord literally said, I told you I was going to provide, but you just still didn't have faith in me that I was going to do it. And again, that's because the Lord doesn't just, I feel like he doesn't just bless people who aren't, like, actually walking with him and, like, reading with him and spending time with him. Like, I'm really spending time with him. I'm really learning about him. I'm talking about him every day. I have this podcast, Bible study, church on Tuesdays, church on Sundays. Like, I'm doing the things. So it's like, when you build that relationship with him, first of all, it's not just going to happen like that.
Of course.
But, like, he really does bless you when you really give that relationship to him, you know? I don't know if you've had, like, a similar experience of, like, giving your relationship to him, or, like, building a relationship and he's, like, blessed you, or things like that you could share.
So, actually, it's funny with the whole college situation. So, I started dating a guy, and I was in school to become a teacher, and I had started dating him, and he was like, is this really what you want? I felt like I was kind of being led in the opposite direction, and I stopped going to college altogether. Wow. Decided to break up with him. Yeah. And then I was really just trying to decide where I wanted to go. And I was going to go to Tampa. I had a room. I had classes booked. I had, or registered for classes, you know, the whole thing. Literally everything planned out. Wow. I knew who my roommates were going to be the next year. Oh my God. Everything. Wow. And I just kept, like, I wasn't hearing the Lord through any of it. And I was like, Lord, what is going on? What is this? Like, can I go? Is this what you want for me? And I wasn't hearing a yes or a no. Yeah. And so I just kept going, because I was like, you know what? I'm not having any doors closed on me right now. So I went to apply for, like, financial aid. Find out that I can't apply as my own adult, which is a very interesting concept, but due to the circumstances, I had to, you know, I wasn't granted the financial aid. And so I'm like, okay, well, that's a bummer. So I apply for, you know, the loans. I couldn't really get any loans from the government. I was only being allotted $3,000. And the thing about the difference between, like, personal loans and government loans is, like, government loans are much easier to pay off. A lot of it will be forgiven through teacher forgiveness programs and such. So that was a lot of opportunity there through government loans. So I was told basically my whole thing would have to be through personal loans. And I just started like really crunching the numbers and looking, and we all know it's very much a given that teachers do not make a lot of money. We all know this. So putting that into perspective and knowing that I want to be able to live financially free and not be stressed out about my money, I just realized that the loans were not something that I wanted to take on. So I just started praying, and I was like, Lord, where do you want me? Because this is not comfortable for me. I wasn't feeling good about it. And so that's when he finally spoke. He was like, no. That's all I was given. I was like, no? Okay, well, this stinks.
Thanks, Lord.
So as I'm typing out the email to tell USF that I'm not coming, I'm bawling.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I had this epiphany that, you know, even through the disappointment, the Lord is going to be faithful.
Absolutely.
And so I still hit send on that email. And they responded, and they're like, sorry to hear this, but we wish you the best. And I was like, okay, perfect. So literally, school was starting 2 weeks later. And it was such a crazy whirlwind of emotions and just realizing I'm not going. And he's like, just have faith. So finally, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go to IRSC because I can pay out of pocket. It's easy. It's right around the corner from my house.
Yeah.
And literally, when I went to register for classes, every single class I needed was available.
Are you kidding me?
Every single professor that I had was like professing the name of the Lord and just being open to it. And people, I was paired in groups with Christian school teachers. And I'm like, whoa, Lord. The faithfulness through that no was insane. And just having the faith that he would provide where I needed him to provide was so eye-opening. And it's so awesome because now the Lord is really teaching me, and I'm in a place of don't act on it unless the Lord says something about it.
Yep.
Or until he says something, because sometimes he wants us to walk through those doors and realize like, ooh, the Lord's not in this door. Let me head back out, you know?
Yeah.
And I think it's so cool to just see how he's been so faithful through all of that, even through such disappointment of wanting to be in a place so bad. And I think the Lord knew that I was kind of running from my emotions and the situation I was in, and just being so faithful through it all was so amazing.
Wow, that's literally so good. I relate to that so much. And again, I haven't even shared this yet. I feel like it just like brought it to the surface, and like I feel like I just need to share this. But so obviously I was like a dancer my whole life, and like when I moved down here, I'm thinking there's going to be amazing dance opportunities. I was auditioning left and right. I was going up to Orlando. I was going to Miami to like audition, to dance. I would make all these auditions, but for some reason, the job never worked out because it wasn't paid, or it just like it wasn't going to work.
Yeah.
And every audition that I went to, I like knew in my stomach, like, this isn't right. I shouldn't be doing this. And I had a really bad feeling about it every time. And for some reason, those jobs never worked out. And they never, like, went to fruition. Like, nothing happened with them. Even though I booked the job, I booked the audition, I still never went. I was like, okay, this isn't going to work for me. Like, I had to tell them afterwards, like, thank you for the opportunity, but, like, it's not going to work. And I think about that so much, even though dance has, like, been my whole life since I was 3 years old, like, the Lord had to shut that down at a point to, like, protect me of, like, where I was going with it. Because I was auditioning for these, like, provocative things that, like, I shouldn't have been auditioning for. And thank God that they didn't work out. Because I can only imagine where I would be right now or what I would be doing right now. And it just was, like, that really just, like, reminded me of that so much that I wanted those things so badly, and I wanted to do the dance gigs and all these dance jobs so badly. But thank God I didn't. And thank God he closed the door, and I wasn't even on my walk with him yet. I wasn't even close to him yet, but he still was protecting me. And he still was like, no, this isn't gonna work.
Yeah, you know? This is not the way for you.
No. Thank God. Oh my God. I would not be well right now.
Right. But I think that's the beauty of the Lord is like he will just... You've just got to listen to his voice and be obedient. Obedience is so important that I think a lot of people miss is like they'll get that clear sign from the Lord, the clear voice saying, don't do that. And they do it anyway.
Oh, yeah. I've been there.
Harshly, but you reap what you sow.
Yeah.
And so if you're living in the world and you're quite literally tuning out the voice of the Lord,
yeah,
you're going to reap that.
absolutely.
You're going to sow, well, I guess you're going to sow that, right? I guess that's how you would say it.
You're going to sow that. Yeah.
You're going to sow that. And if you're listening to him and being obedient to his words over your life, you're going to see that fruit come into fruition, like that big word you used.
Yeah, fruition.
Fruition.
Trying to use big words.
I know. Trying to sound sophisticated.
You think about like when you rebel against your parents and you're not obedient to your parents. It feels good in the moment. It feels good for a second, but then after you're not obedient, you feel bad afterwards. And it's the same thing that with the Lord, and it's the same thing in our life. When we're doing the things that we know we're not supposed to, it feels good in the moment. You're rebelling, you feel good. You're doing these things, it's giving you a rush. But afterwards, guess what it leads to? Depression, anxiety, sadness, all these things that are not from the Lord. But he was telling you, hey, if you're not obedient, that these things are going to happen to you, but you are still deciding to disobey. And it's just like with your parents. When you disobey your parents and when you don't listen to them, you're going to get like punished by it, or you're not going to,
there's consequences for your actions.
Thank you. Consequences. Gosh, I said one big word. That's all I got.
That's how the enemy likes to creep in. He's deceitful and he's not original. He doesn't have his own ideas. So he's going to come in and he's going to use those feelings of satisfaction and like the exhilaration of doing something that you shouldn't be doing.
Yeah.
And then you're going to just realize like, wow, this is, like you said, leads to depression, anxiety.
But so my experience and my testimony is kind of like I was into like the whole partying scene. I was really heavily into that. And I think about like how depressed and how unfulfilled I was in my life and how lost and confused I was. It's like, that's not how we're supposed to be living, and that's not how we're supposed to be acting, and that's not how we're supposed to be feeling. You're not supposed to be waking up every morning and feeling lost, hungover, confused, wondering what happened the night before.
Right.
You're not supposed to be waking up feeling that way. And we weren't designed to feel that way. But we look at the world and we look at the large path of the world, and that's what it's showing us right now. It's showing us go out and do these things, go out and party, go out and have fun.
It's so normalized.
It's so normalized, and it's go take antidepressants, go do these things, and it's like, no, don't do that,
But the reality, too, is that those people living in that, you're not going to find a single one of them that says it's like the best thing to ever happen to them.
You're not.
They're doing it because they're craving that love and that affection. And so I think that even in their worldly lives, they know that there's some sort of void that they're trying to fill.
Absolutely.
But they can't put their finger on it because they're not entirely sure what that void is. And I've always said this because I've had experiences in my life where I've witnessed this myself. But if somebody doesn't know the love of Christ, then they don't know what love is.
Absolutely.
Because
100%.
God is love. And so if you don't know God, it's hard to even know how to love other people. And so when you're trying to fill that void with the one thing that you're missing in your life, it just doesn't make sense.
That's literally so true. Wow. That's really good. He really is. And like, I feel like the only way you're ever going to feel real love is through him. So you're never going to find it through anything else. And it's just the truth.
You can try and try and try, but
you're never going to be fulfilled.
You're going to be watering a flower that's never growing.
Yeah. And that's like fulfillment was a huge thing for me. I never was fulfilled. I've never been fulfilled in my life. I'm always looking for the next thing. I'm always looking for the better thing. Where can we move? What can I do? Where can I dance next? What can I do? Now I'm just like, I'm happy. Like, I'm happy where I'm at. I feel at peace where I'm at.
Right.
I don't need to do all these things that, like, I once needed to do all the time. Like, traveling. I needed to travel all the time. I, like, had to go on a weekend trip every week. And it's like, girl, no, you don't.
Right.
Like,
you can be satisfied where you're at.
Yes. Like, you do not need to do all those things.
So that kind of, like, piggybacks off of what 1 Corinthians 3 says in verse 6. It says, I planted, Apollos watered, but God gave the growth. So neither he who plants nor he who waters is anything, but only God who gives the growth. He who plants and he who waters are one, and each will receive the wages according to his labor. For we are God's fellow workers. You are God's field and God's building.
So good.
And I think it's so cool because this is Paul talking in this, and
Yeah.
he's saying that him and Apollos watered and they planted seeds, but the reality is only God can be the one that actually does the growing. So we can plant all the seeds we want, and we can grow all the flowers we want, but the reality is like I was saying just a minute ago, how we can water a flower that's never going to grow through all of the partying and the drugs and the sex, all of that.
All that.
Without God in there, it's not going to grow.
We have had some very much technical difficulties. Kaya just threw up all over the floor. I'm going to spare you that and cut that out. But what Kaylee was saying, which was so good, and I'm very upset that it was getting cut off, was basically you can plant seeds, but the only one who's going to help anything grow is God. The only one who's going to make anything grow is God, and it's just so true in every aspect of your life. But what she was saying was amazing. Just got a little bit cut short.
That's okay. I kind of also want to touch base on Galatians 5:22 through 24. It says, "But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Against such things there is no law. And those who belong to Christ Jesus have crucified the flesh with its passions and desires."
I love that.
I think I know that when you're walking with the Lord, like fully submitted to His will over your life, you are almost automatically walking in the fruits because your spirit desires to walk in that. It literally says right here, Jesus Christ have crucified the flesh with its passions and desires. So the desires of flesh almost die off when you submit your life to Christ.
Wow.
And so you automatically start walking in the fruits. And the Bible talks about knowing them by their fruits.
Yeah.
And it almost goes back to like the judgment thing that you were talking about in the beginning of how, how are you going to judge someone when you're not even like judging yourself rightly, right?
Right.
And so I think I don't know. That was just something I wanted to piggyback off of.
I love that because I've experienced like the peace and the patience so much since I've started really walking with Him. Because I've never really had peace or patience in my life.
Yeah.
Like, especially coming from New York, like the patience is you don't have any. And so like that's something that I've experienced so much. The patience and the peace. Oh my gosh. Like it's just so true, like what you said, when you're really walking with Him, when you're actually walking with Him, you really do experience those things. And those are things that He gives to us for free. They're not something, you know what I mean?
You don't have to earn them.
No. So I love that. I'm so glad that you touched on that. I think there was Ephesians 4 that we were going to talk about too.
I wanted to speak on Ephesians 4.
Yeah.
We can go to verse 15, I believe it was. "Rather, speaking the truth in love, we are to grow up in every way into Him who is the head, into Christ, for whom the whole body, joined and held together by every joint for which is equipped, when each part is working properly, makes the body grow so that it builds itself up in love." This is almost referring to like the body of Christ and the church, and just how every working part is what makes the ship run,
Yeah. No, it's so true. Like everything. And he makes us even perfectly to be able to run or to run through us too, which is like so important. I love that. Ephesians, you guys, if you need like, I don't know, I feel like if you need like reassurance or like anything, like I just feel like Ephesians is like such a good book to like really like read and touch on and study and know. Yeah, absolutely.
I kind of want to touch on like 1 through 7 as well.
Okay.
It says, "I therefore, a prisoner for the Lord, urge you to walk in a manner worthy of calling to which you have been called, with all humility and gentleness, with patience, bearing with one another in love, eager to maintain the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace. There is one body and one Spirit, just as you were called to the one hope that belongs to your call. One Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God and Father of all, who is over all and through all and in all. But grace was given to each of us according to the measure of Christ's gift. Therefore it says, when He ascended on high, He held a host of captives, and He gave gifts to men."
I love that.
I think that verse is so reassuring as well, because it almost piggybacks off of, I use that word a lot, piggybacks. It almost relates to the fruits of the Spirit in Colossians because, is it Colossians? No,
yeah.
Galatians.
Galatians, yeah. Okay. Galatians.
That right there just relates to Galatians so much, talking about the fruits of the Spirit and how when you become a prisoner for the Lord, you're becoming all of those things because He's dwelling in you, because He's one Spirit, one God, one body, all going through you, living through you, which is so beautiful. To think that you don't even have to try to achieve these things. It all comes naturally when you're living Christ's will over your life.
Wow, so good. That is so true. Oh my goodness. That's awesome. I love that. I'm so happy to have you on with us. Like, I feel like it's just been such like a, you're very knowledgeable, so it's very good to like talk about like someone who's very knowledgeable with the Bible and like have that on here and like show people that you can get to know the Bible and you can relate it to your life and you can be, you can be knowledgeable, about it. I think
it's really awesome too to kind of relate the Bible to kind of your current life situation.
Yeah.
Because it helps it become more personal.
Yeah.
Because this book right here, this is like you eat this every day and I'm telling you, it's awesome.
I was talking about this with Callie. I don't remember if it was on my podcast that I did with her or on hers. I don't know what one it was. But I literally was saying, like, the Bible is literally talks about everything in our life like that's going to happen.
Yes.
Jesus has felt every single thing that we felt, and that's why the Bible is written to help us be able to get through all of the feelings that we're going to feel in our life. It doesn't say if you feel this, it's when you feel this. When you go through this is how to handle it. This is how to be when these situations arise. This book, this Bible is written to help us through our lives.
Oh, yeah.
Not to just like be there for nothing.
Yeah,
it's literally to help us.
It's not just a storybook. It's literally how you should. It's the way, the truth, and the life.
Yeah.
It's how you should live your life.
Yeah.
And I also love how Ephesians 4 talks about in here the grace. That grace is given to each one according to the measure of Christ's gift. Literally, Jesus dying on the cross was our gift.
Yeah.
And it's not something that we have to, like, we need to take for granted.
No.
It's so important to also recognize that you can't just live in this grace and think that it's okay to stay where you're at.
Yes.
Because when you're truly following Christ, you're going to desire to stay in His fruits.
Yeah.
Your flesh will die, like we've been talking about.
That is so true, and I just feel like I remember where I was when I was sinning in my life, like just being like, no, God's gonna forgive me anyways. No, God's gonna love me anyways. Which again, He is.
He will. He is.
He is.
But it's your heart posture behind it. It's you know what's right and wrong at that point, and now you're almost. I don't want to use the word abusing, but you're almost like taking for granted the gift that He gave you. This beautiful gift of grace that He's given each and every one of us.
Yeah.
It's like. It's not something to play around with.
No,
it's
and also like
so special
when you are playing around with that. Like, what blessings are actually happening in your life? Not many,
right. Probably none.
Probably not any. Probably none that you're asking for or wanting, because you're not walking by His will. You're not walking by what He's telling you to walk by, and everyone knows about Jesus.
Yes,
every single person knows about Jesus. It's not a thing that people don't know about. Right. Everyone knows. So it's like, choose where you want to walk. Do you want to walk in the constant anxiety, the constant depression, sadness? Do you want to keep walking in what you're walking in right now? Do you want to keep being where you are right now? Or do you want to feel this love and this compassion in this new life that you get to live? Do you want to be different? If you don't want to be different, then that's fine. No one's forcing you.
No one's forcing you.
No one's forcing you. But I don't know about you, but I want to be different. I want to be better. I want to learn new things. I want to live a life of fullness, of love, of hope, of peace, of all these things. I don't want to be back in where I was. And that's the beautiful thing about a walk with Jesus, that you get to die to who you were.
Yes. And
become a new person. And
He created you to be.
Exactly. And become the person that you want to be. When you look at someone and you see someone and you're like, oh, I want to be like them. Why can't you be like them? Right. You know? No one's saying that you can't. It's just following Jesus and actually doing those things.
And are you looking at the bitter person and the angry person and the person living in the parties? Are you looking at them and saying, I wish I was them?
Yeah.
Probably not.
Probably not. And if you are looking at those people that are drinking and partying and having sex and doing those things, like, do you think that they're actually happy? Do you know if they're actually fulfilled in their life? Like, what are they feeling every day? Do you talk to them? Like, what are they doing on a daily basis? Do you see them crying? Do you see them upset? So those are the things that you have to look at when you are looking at people doing things that you think you want to do.
Right.
Check them. Like, look at them. See how they're actually doing in their life. See how they're actually feeling in their life. And let that determine who you actually want to be around or who you actually want to be like. And I think that's just like something in our world right now, that we see all these perfect things on social media. We see the perfect couple, the perfect family, but we don't know how they actually are in life,
exactly.
you know, and if they're actually happy. No one knows, but we have this like thing of social media that says like, no, this is how I'm perfect. My life's perfect. But no, they're not. They're just shoving deep down that they're all of the sadness that they're feeling. So just remember, before you go and like actually hang out with people, or before you look at who you want to be like, the partying and the drinking, if that's where you're at, college kids, high school kids, if that's what you're looking at, just remember, are they actually happy? Are they actually fulfilled in their life? And just look at that and see that. So that's my encouragement. So what's one little last thing, like someone that is like walking in their faith, like what's some advice that you could give them to help them, like, or something that you've walked into to really help encourage someone?
I think the best tip would be to just step out in faith.
Yeah.
Just go for it, because I think that a lot of people, like kind of how you were sharing, can feel very intimidated by even opening a Bible because it's so scary to die to your flesh. It really is, because the wide gate is easy, right?
Yeah.
And so I think just stepping out in faith and just doing it, because it's so fulfilling. And I know, at least from my experience, my biggest worry was like friendships.
Yeah.
I was so scared that I wasn't going to have a group of friends, because in high school, throughout all of school years, I think I struggled a lot with just finding my friend group and finding my place.
Yeah.
And honestly, finding Christ is when I found the most amazing friends in my life.
Yeah.
And just so fulfilling. And like Kaylea was talking about, just how you can go to them and never feel like you're a burden to them. And so you will find your people. You will find your group. You will find your niche in life.
Yeah.
So yeah, just go for it and follow Jesus.
Yes.
I mean,
absolutely.
just kind of take that step of faith and just.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on, girl. This was so fun. We had some glitches happen, but we kept going and we pushed through. The enemy was trying real hard to destroy this, and he did not work.
Will not succeed.
No, he will not succeed. But I love you so much. Thank you for coming on. And I just wanted to do a little prayer before we close out.
Perfect.
So if everyone could just bow their heads, close their eyes. Lord, I just thank you so much for this podcast. I thank you that we get to talk about you, talk through you, and we get to just share the light and the love that you are, Lord. We're just so thankful for you, and that you get to speak to people who are listening to this, and that you just get to touch anyone that needed to hear this tonight, Lord, or whenever they're listening to this. Thank you for Kaylea and her wisdom and coming on here and sharing all that she knows with us. We just ask that you would really just reach out and take these girls or these men, anyone that are listening, under your wing, and just show them the love and the peace that you give, Lord. We love you and we're thankful for you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
But if you guys can just share this with anyone that you think could benefit from this, share it with a loved one, a friend, a family member. It would just be so helpful for me. I'm really trying to get the word out here, trying to spread the love. So just share it with anyone that you think could benefit from this. And we will definitely have Kaylea back on for sure. Love you, girl. Thank you again.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. And as always, keep it real out there, you guys. See you on the next one. Bye.